Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. As usual, no surprises there. And this is Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 49. And it goes as such in the transliteration, Dehendriya Prana Manodiyam Yo Janma Yayo Shud Payatarsakritshrahai Sangsara Dharmayar Avimuyamanaha Smritya Harer Bhagavata Pradhana. So Deha means in this body. Indriya means the senses. Prana, we know that word, life air. And the next word we definitely know, mana, means mind. Diya means intelligence. And Yahu, Janma, by birth, Apyaya, diminishing. So birth and death, right? Basically, or old age, diminishing. Shut means hunger. And Bhaya means fear. All these wonderful things. Tarsha means thirst, and Kritrai, and the pain of exertion. Sangsara, material life. Dharmai, by the inseparable features. Avimuyamana, not bewildered. So this is the positive thing now. People who are not bewildered by these things, smritya, because of remembrance. And how are they not bewildered? Because they remember who? Hare, Lord Hari. And therefore they are called Bhagavata Pradhanaha, the foremost of devotees. Within the material world, one's material body is always subject to birth and decay. Similarly, the life air, prana, is harassed by hunger and thirst. The mind is always anxious. The intelligence hankers for that which cannot be obtained. And all of the senses are ultimately exhausted by constant struggle in the material nature. A person who is not bewildered by the inevitable miseries of material existence and who remains aloof from them simply by remembering the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be considered Bhagavat Pradhana, the foremost devotee of the Lord. So the question was, what are the different classifications of devotees? So this and the previous verse were about the Uttama Vaishnavas, the foremost devotees. So I don't know if you know this, but the 11th canto is where Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu and Hridayananda Maharaj started after taking over this service from Srila Prabhupada. So if you look at the beginning of the 11th, they didn't go to the 10th, they didn't do the 10th canto first, they did the 11th canto. And if you look, they really got into these long purports in the beginning. They were really, and then you kind of see it peters out towards the even the end of the 11th canto, and it's certainly in the 10th canto. So there's a long purport. We're not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just highlight 2 paragraphs. The pure devotee of the Lord, however, does not experience material misery because he has given up the bodily concept of life and identifies himself correctly as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So, that has to be understood because like Srila Prabhupada did experience 2 heart attacks. And he also mentions afterwards a constant ringing in his ear. And that was certainly painful. So there was some experience of it. But not only is he just it's not just that a devotee is not on the bodily concept of life, that's the negative, but is so absorbed in giving pleasure to Krishna that, and I'm saying this from a very theoretical point of view because I'm not on that level, that the miseries are kind of an offering. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about that. That if something gives me great pain, my Lord, but it gives you great pleasure, then that's my greatest pleasure. As stated by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 2, Susukam kartam avyayam. Even in the stage of regulated practice, so Vaidhi Bhakti, the process of Bhakti Yoga is very joyful. Similarly, Lochana Das Thakur, a near contemporary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, said, Saba Avatar Shara Shiromani Kevala Ananda Kanda. Although there are various khandas or divisions of Vedic disciplines, such as Karma Kanda, fruitive ceremonies, and Jnana Kanda, regulated speculation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Harinam Sankirtan movement is Kevala Ananda Kanda, the pathway of pure bliss. Simply by chanting the holy names of Krishna, eating the remnants of sumptuous food offered to the Supreme Lord. I just had a pizza because it's 5 o'clock. It's almost 6 o'clock in the evening here, and it was some devotee's birthday here in Govardhan, so they made pizza. So I'm trying to stay awake after having had a whole pizza. But anyway, eating the remnants of sumptuous food offered to the Supreme Lord and hearing the enchanting pastimes of the person, one merges into an ocean of bliss called Krishna consciousness. So there's some kind of paraphrasing a little bit of the first line, the first verse of Shikshastika, Lord Chaitanya's 8 verses. Right, merging into an ocean of bliss. Sarvatma Snapanam. Fortunately, this blissful ocean is the eternal situation of every living entity, provided he gives up all his bogus concepts of life. One should not identify himself with a gross material body, nor as a fickle mind, nor as speculative intelligence, nor should one foolishly identify himself with the so-called void of Buddhist imagination. Just want to make sure you all can hear me because the electricity just went out here. Somebody
We can still hear.
Okay, good. All glories to the battery backups. Nor should one even identify himself with the ocean of impersonal spiritual life called Brahmajyoti, which illuminates the great outdoors of the spiritual sky beyond the covered universe. One should rather identify himself, and let's keep in mind this word identity, because we're going to talk about that today. Nor should one should rather identify himself correctly as an eternal individual, so eternal and individual servant of the supreme individual personality of Godhead. By this simple admission of one's constitutional position and by sincere engagement in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, one is quickly promoted to direct participation in the eternal pastimes of Krishna. Just as Arjuna got the opportunity to play with Krishna as a soldier on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I don't know if somebody, I've been letting people in because they've been kind of waiting a while, but if anyone can let people in, that'd be...
Sorry, I will. I apologize.
All right. No, don't apologize.
I got into the purport.
That's a good excuse. I like it. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is the servants of Prabhupada mentioned the fickle mind. So I thought we'd talk about the mind and this point about identity or false ego. And it's because, we all struggle with the mind, let's face it. I mean, Krishna says, Manasastan Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karsatita. It's the struggle. But the real problem is the false ego, is our false idea of who we think we are. And then based on who we think we are, the mind protects that false ego. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses this word, maner manus, which means the mentally imagined person, the mentally imagined man or person. Right? So because you have this illusory imagination of who we are, that's the false ego, which is the most subtle and therefore the most powerful. We have earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Of those eight, the false ego is the strongest because it convinces us who are completely spiritual that we are completely material. That's pretty powerful. So we have this. And then the mind um, accepts and rejects constantly, all day, all night, based on who we think we are. Mhm. Um, that verse in the seventh chapter, verse 27, that says, that we're born into delusion, overwhelmed by desire and hate. I like it, I don't like it. I like it, I don't like it. Um, so if someone insults us, we're upset with that person. If someone praises us, we think they're very intelligent. And both the insulter and the praiser are reinforcing our false concept of who we think we are. Hmm. And this false sense of who we think we are is all we know. I mean, of course, as devotees, now we're hearing the Bhagavatam, and we know, at least theoretically, we're supposed to understand that we're Krishna's eternal servant. But for us, to some extent, and to people who aren't familiar with these kind of teachings, to 199.9% extent, it's all we know. It's all we know is a false concept of who we are. We get choice of kind of 8,400,000 different false egos, and within those, there's variety also within those 8,400,000. Um, but everyone, not everyone, but most people and most living entities embrace this idea that I'm anything but God's servant. And, or at least, yeah, maybe I'm sure there's many spiritual people in this world, and they have some vague idea, because even we have a very clear idea. Some people also may have kind of a clear idea, but how often we act on that as opposed to acting on false ego, um, is an interesting question. It's not that we just identify, we embrace that identity. Literally, it's all we know. It really goes, so deep into the into our psyche. And then the mind protects that. The mind protects that. And if we understand the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, we see that this whole world, the whole world is created to maintain that falsity. I mean, also we say to give us a chance to break out of it, but also the whole world exists to maintain that falsity, because that's what we conditioned souls wanted, that we are anything, anything, anything except Krishna's servant. We're a blade of grass, we're a tiger, we're a lion, we're hopefully, unfortunately, a New York Jets fan, or we like Thai food, or whatever, anything except Krishna's servant. Anything. It's it reminds me a little bit of um, when you're trying to feed a toddler and they don't want to eat, right? I don't know if you ever see. So you take the spoon and they close their mouth and they go to to the left and you try to move the spoon, then you go to the right, you move the spoon and they left, right. It's just anything except eating that that spinach, or whatever that they're not going to like. But that's kind of what we are like, anything except Krishna's, a God's servant. And that's the mind. That's the mind. And the mind, it's so interesting because the mind, it has this it has this kind of perverted pleasure of things that upset us and bewilder us. I don't know if you ever had that experience. Um, but I mean, we all know, for example, that our minds can often be more transfixed, can be more fixed on a person that we really don't like or are afraid of, or yeah, we hate even, than someone we love. It can be more intense. Like, there's the Kangsa program, we could call it, right? Where Kangsa was so Shishupal also, right? Just so absorbed in Krishna, not favorably, but still absorbed in Krishna. And that absorption actually is praiseworthy, even though again it's not uncool, it's not favorable. Um, but so the mind kind of tastes uh, the accepting and rejecting of things. And I think we experience this for us as devotees when we're chanting Hare Krishna. The mind will tell us. Anyone ever had the experience that our mind is telling us that we're bored when we're chanting? I don't know if anyone except myself have had that experience, right? Or very common that we become easily distracted. We become easily distracted. And that's the mind tasting anything except chanting Krishna's name attentively. Um, as Lord Chaitanya laments in the second verse of the Shikshastakam, right? Nanu Ragaha, that Krishna is so kind, so kind. He's put all of energy, all of his Shakti into the holy names, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. That's because the mind is tasting either boredom on one hand or distraction on the other, or both simultaneously, perhaps. And we'll get to this maybe a little later, but the only remedy is to beg Krishna for the ability to and the determination to just hear his name. It's so sweet. It's so, I mean, it's, you know, if you think about this, because Prabhupada said on a number of occasions that when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna is dancing on our tongue. Or another, way, we are in direct communion or relationship with him because Abhinatvam Namanamino, the name and the person are the same. So this is a challenge, and it's not easy to do that. Obviously, I think many of us have had that experience also, right? It's and what to speak of except the next verse of Shikshastakam, to accept that we're not significant. We put so much, most people, we really kind of think of ourselves or people close to us the center of our existence, and it's so interesting the imagery that Lord Chaitanya uses, both in the first verse and the third verse of Shikshastakam. So in the third verse, right, um, plants and trees, right, grass and a tree. And grass, the grass is because the grass's false ego is not that big. Because it's just there, you go out in a field and they're one blade of grass amongst so many others. And, the reality is that we're insignificant servant of Krishna. The other cool thing is that for in Krishna's eyes were very significant. But that's his view of the souls in this world. Mm. But that's a reality. And the other reality is like, I hate to say this, but 100 years from now, probably no one will even know we existed. Right. Um, so with that good news, um, so this false ego awards us. It's an award to make us think we or those close to us are the center of the universe instead of Krishna. And one really good example of understanding the mind is the Advanti Brahmana. So this is mentioned by Lord Krishna to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. He was a very, very wealthy person, and he was a total miser. Total, I mean, like ridiculous miser, because not only would he not spend money on his family or his kids, he wouldn't even spend it on himself. And suddenly, one thing led to another, and he was devoid of his wealth. And his family all rejected him, and he was a pauper, and he was living on the street, and people were treating him so badly because he treated people so badly when he was rich. And unheard of things, urinating on the food that he begged and spitting on this and this, on and on and on. But then he had an epiphany, and he realized some amazing things. I'll read you what he realized. He said, all the senses, because he realized that he wasn't his mind, that all of this, the suffering he was going through was just because of his mind. And so he says, all the senses have been under the control of the mind since time immemorial, and the mind himself never comes under the sway of any other. He is stronger than the strongest, and his godlike power is fearsome. Anyone have this experience? Therefore, anyone who can bring the mind under control becomes the master of all the senses. Failing to conquer the irrepressible enemy, the mind, whose urges are intolerable and who torments the heart, many people are completely bewildered and create useless quarrels with the others. Thus, they conclude that other people are either their friends, their enemies, or parties indifferent to them. So then he goes on to say that the misery of this world are not because of our karma, it's not because of the demigods, it's not because of the planetary alignment, it's not because of our friends or our enemies, it's only because of the mind. It's such a powerful, there's so many amazing statements about the mind, but probably the Advanti Brahmanas is right up there, right near the top. So, we tend to believe what we think or what we feel. And we believe that that is true. Now, this is not to um, poo-poo and people's emotions and thoughts, but the reality is that essentially our only shelter is Krishna. And certainly not our mind, unless our mind is thinking of Krishna. Udarad atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayat, atmaiva hi atmana bandur, your friend, atmaiva viparatmanaha, or it could be our greatest enemy. So, what do we, when the going gets tough, where does our mind take shelter? Right? Do we turn on the computer and go to YouTube and try to forget about what's going on? Do we uh, eat a lot of pizza? Oh, I just did that, or chocolate, or whatever. Where do we take shelter? Um, and the reality, we can't change those planets. We can't. You ever try to change other people? That's probably one of the hardest things in the entire universe to change other people. Um, we can't send the people that we don't like off to a far distant land, even though we'd like to. And we can't even, stop being separated sometimes from those that we love. And the real shelter, and this is something to try to think deeply and not just like, oh, I heard that in Bhagavatam class. The real shelter is in Krishna. And in this age, the real shelter is in his name. Um, yeah, there's no, it's, we know all the verses, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam. Um, but we need to put in, I'm talking to myself more than y'all, put a real effort in our chanting. That one finger that's free during in the bead bag is not meant for, scrolling or pointing, or we're not meant to be, cleaning our desk when we're chanting, or we're really meant, as easy or hard as it is, to just sit down, at least for some of the time, sit down and just chant. And it doesn't, the crazy thing about it is it's so simple. All we have to do is hear Krishna's name. That's all we have to do. That's all we have to do is hear Krishna's name. It's and bathe in his association by doing that, and to keep reminding ourselves that this is the greatest gift of this age. There's nothing else to be, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, there's nothing else to be had in all the 14 worlds or whatever than Krishna's name. And to hear the glories of Krishna, it's just like I just read yesterday the second chapter of Adi Leela, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and there Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is establishing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, kind of like in the Krishna is tu Bhagavan Swayam. Um, and then establishing Lord Chaitanya as non-different from Krishna. And I noticed that then when I chanted, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Panchatattva mantra, it was more meaningful because I just read about how amazing it is, how Lord Chaitanya is so amazing. So regularly hearing inspiring words about Krishna and Krishna's devotees, re regularly making an effort, as hard as it is, as much as the mind is telling us to do anything except chant attentively, as difficult as that is, just to really try to focus on chanting, and as we heard in the purport, and taking prasadam mindfully, not just, gobbling it down, but actually thanking Krishna, remembering that, as Prabhupada would say, you can't eat nuts and bolts, that this is all coming from Krishna, and to be in the mode of goodness. I was just also hearing Prabhupada say today that we really need to cultivate goodness. So where we live is clean, our car is clean, our mind is clean, and we just slow down to, kind of what it is, slow down to the speed of life, especially when honoring prasadam or when dealing with other Vaishnavas. And if we do that, then, our mind can gradually become our friend. I was just reading, a devotee wrote that if you think your mind is your enemy all the time, wow, that can be a little exhausting. If you think your mind is your friend all the time, that can be really illusion. But if you think of your mind as a patient in a hospital, I thought that was interesting. Uh, but as and it has to be, tested and cared for, and there's different ways to deal with the mind. So one explanation is to neglect it. Another one is from Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, about beating it. But the main one, Savaimana Krishna Padaravindayo, to think of Krishna. What did somebody just put in the chat? When the going gets tough. When the going gets tough, where does our mind take shelter? Yes. So that was my thought, because this purport was just like, okay, now what am I gonna do? The purport goes on for a long time, and even the verse is about so many different things. So I saw the mind was there, and I thought, okay, we'll talk about the mind today. So what time is it there? Anyway, I think we have time for questions and comments.
Did you say in the beginning there did you say that material suffering is a kind of service?
I don't think so, but it is Krishna's arrangement to give us the opportunity, the chance to take shelter of him. So yes, and I think we mentioned this in class last time I gave class at the Bhakti Center, but one of the main causes of conflict in the world is unclear expectations. And Krishna tries to make expectations of this world very clear, where he says dukhalaya, that it's a place of unhappiness. And there's birth, death, disease, and old age. And in several places, he's trying to make it really clear in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and to us that this is not our real home, and we shouldn't. We should be surprised when something goes well instead of surprised when something goes bad, so-called bad. And of course, that good and bad is a whole that also is can be a mental concoction, as Shastra says. Yes, Jamuna Jaya, Devi.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for class. Hope you're enjoying Govardhan and maybe you're seeing my Guru Dev because he's there too right now. Um, I was loving, we can never hear too much about the mind. And something you said reminded me of something that a friend said long ago. Said, remember, you can't believe everything you think. And
Yes.
I love that. And I always think of that. But then when you said about the emotions, I'm like, that's harder for me because I get to
Yeah.
thinking, oh, I'm feeling it. So it must be that I can't believe everything I feel either. So that was such a
Yeah.
good reminder for me because I tend to think, oh, well, it's emotions, it's my truth. It's like, nah, nah, nah. I have to look with it with the same filter that I look at my thoughts through my mind. So thank you for that.
And then we want to be full of emotions, just emotions, for love of Krishna. It's just like when you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you just look at there's one way to read the CC where you're just looking at the relationships amongst the devotees and Lord Chaitanya, and it's so sweet and full of emotions. And Jamuna Jai, the reason I don't know if you noticed when I was talking about that specific point, I was a little hesitating, and the reason is that in my service of I don't know, counseling devotees, listening to them as an ombuds, etc. I am dealing with devotees' emotions, and it usually is not the right thing to do to immediately say, "Oh, Prabhu, don't you're not your emotions. Didn't you read the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam? Yeah, the Abhanti Brahma. You know that might be that's a realization that they have to usually come to gradually and slowly, even though it is the reality. So I do find myself dealing a lot with people's emotions, and I can't just say, yeah, yeah, emotions, nonsense, forget it. So that's why I don't know if you noticed, but I hesitated a little bit when I was talking about that because what I said was accurate, but it's also on this level, and sometimes we're also dealing with devotees on this level. Is that
Yeah,
all
it's a
right?
very good point. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah, because it could also lead a little bit to kind of like spiritual bypassing where, um, yeah, lead with compassion. Henry said yes. Other questions, comments, thoughts, debates? It is interesting, not interesting. It is significant that the very last verse of the Bhagavatam talks about chanting Hare Krishna, the importance of Krishna's holy name. Honor one's emotions and then help realize that one is not one's emotion. Yeah, very good. Who wrote that? Oh, Martina, yeah. Yes. It's just like that verse, one of the most important verses in the Prabhupada said, the guide for all devotees, Tatenu Kampam Sukshamikshamano. If you're not familiar with it, paraphrasing, it says that when one goes through difficulties, instead of blaming God, if one with one's heart, words, thoughts, actions, um, thanks Krishna that he would have been, he had much worse coming to him, but Krishna has kindly minimized it, and so take shelter of Krishna, then that person practically, if we can do that, inherits the kingdom of God. So that verse is one of the ones that have to be so carefully shared with the person who's going through difficulties. Because if you just go, oh Prabhu, it's Krishna's mercy. Their attitude is kind of like, I'll give you some of Krishna's mercy. But you can't really push someone to that verse or pull them towards that verse. You kind of have to walk alongside them as gradually they come to that realization. And when the clouds of passion and ignorance lift, and Krishna says in the Gita, Sattva Sanjayate Jnanam, from the mode of goodness, knowledge comes. So that's the finesse of helping other people, and what speak of other devotees. And as much as we saw Prabhupada often just like kind of cutting and chastising, especially his 20-something disciples, when he was talking with people who are more established in the world, he often was a good listener. And it was a different, he according to time, place, and circumstance. And he told Balavanta Prabhu that in a letter, that if you want to share Krishna consciousness with intelligent people, you could take the example of Lord Chaitanya listening for 7 days to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya without saying anything. Or he said how Krishna was so patient with Arjuna in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada said to appreciate others' points of view. Gradually they'll come to be interested in bhakti. And here's Hemangi says, it is interesting how our natural position is being Krishna's servant, but how we are ready to be anything and do anything but take shelter of Krishna. Yeah, well, that's the. I hope you can think of that example sometime, trying to feed a toddler, because it's not easy if they really are determined, very determined not to have whatever that is, apple cider, whatever. I mean, applesauce, whatever it is. They're just like, hell no. Yes, Sadhvi Devi.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for today. I don't know if it's a correct way to ask other than, in my understanding, Krishna says, among the senses, I'm the mind. And when he says that, and then we get to know that chanting of Mahamantra is very important to do it. Does it mean that when we do that, then we have better control over our mind?
When we do what?
When we chant, yes.
Well, I think we all experience that. It's not necessarily so. Right? It seems the mind can become more distracted when chanting than even at other times in our day. Because it's such a sattvic, and of course, pseudo-sattvic thing, right? And we are sometimes living in a world, especially if you live in New York, in a very rajarsic, if not tamasic, environment. And the simplicity of chanting is just, it's uncanny. Prabhupada said, what's the question of the mind? Just engage your ear and your tongue. Just chant Hare Krishna and listen to it. And of course, then you could add with some love, with some devotion, with some longing. And it's it's the simplicity of it. And the mind, that's why, the early morning hours are, the best time, because it's a little less likely that our mind is going, 50 miles an hour, unless we look at our phone right when we wake up, which I'm sure some of us do. But it's such a beautiful process, and it brings you right to the highest stage of love of God, because it's directly connecting with Krishna. It's our time to be alone with Krishna when we chant japa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vraj Vihari Prabhu, a question on the mind and how to deal with it. Is it a valid strategy that one should not be in a secluded place at the late night hours with their own mind? In other words, is that a valid strategy to always seek being engaged in service and being surrounded by uplifting devotees and being engaged positively? Because sometimes during the late night, we see that the mind gets very active, and late night hours, am I gonna ask Bima to come over and babysit me because my mind is going crazy? How do we go about this? Raj Bihari.
Well, yeah, I mean, people may have different schedules according to work and family and all this, but ideally, early to bed, early to rise, right? That was a good saying. Makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. The early hours are good and the late hours are not so good, and even health-wise, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that you get more restful sleep for those hours before midnight. So that as a general rule, but if one is chanting, I mean, if one's doing devotional activities at night, then it's not the end of the world. It's schedules. When we were all living in the temple, it was easy, right? You just tell everybody, take rest, hot milk and Krishna book until 8:30, take rest by 9, get up by 3:30, and etc. And it was life was simple. But I do realize, like, I don't know if that's your child. I heard some child in the background. Sometimes children have a different plan than our sadhana. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yes. So having just become a grandfather 2.5 months ago, and knowing what, even my wife and I have been helping with the grandchild a little bit, not now because I'm in India, but yeah, their schedule is not one that makes it easy to go to Mangalarti every day, put it that way, unless you're already up because you've been up all night, right? So things may have to be adjusted, but so it's not necessarily that the mind is overwhelmed with bad things at night, but it is said, right, that morning is more sattvic, the daytime is more rajasic, and the nighttime is more tamasic.
I'm gonna go to bed with Balaram tonight, and
All
I'll
right.
report back if it worked.
Okay, very good. So is that our time is up?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock Darshan time. Thank you very much, Vraj Vihari Prabhu. Wonderful class.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for giving me some service.
Thank you so much, Vraj Vihari Prabhu. I really appreciated your class, especially about the mind. I really needed to hear that today in terms of helping me with my mind. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Devaki Priti. Is that who said that?
Yeah, it's Devaki Priti.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, well, maybe today we're all going to be like watching our mind and saying, oh, is it thinking of Krishna? Oh, I'm going to neglect it.
Think of Krishna, or else I'll ignore you and beat you up.
You can also do some bribe with the mind, like, I'll think about that right after I finish my rounds, I promise. It's snowy and overcast and cold, huh, in New York? Wow.
Yes.
Jai Radha Muralidhar.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Radha Muralidhar Shri Gaurachandra. Thank you very much, dear devotees, for your association. It's so nice hearing about Krishna in the association of the devotees, right? It's not the same as hearing about Krishna without the association. Hemangi is sending a flying heart. Thank you, Hemangi. We caught it and passed it on. Amrita Kishori, thank you. Thank you. Oh, we need that. We need that. Would anyone like Ram, please?
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Kumari?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Where is Venu Madhuri?
Her and Stephanie just headed over to the Vyasa Puja. for Satsrup Das Goswami with some of the flowers. We make garlands and flower arrangements here for all the Vaishnavas. It's a pleasure. I just wanted to talk about these beautiful lordships. They all have pink, like wool chutters on, besides their decorative chutters. Someone really cares about them and wanted to keep them warm today. Gaurachandra has his on, and it's like his turban is filled with every color of the rainbow. It's like so vibrant with yellows and green and red and orange and purple. And he's got many layers in his turban. So beautiful. And Muralidhar, I don't know where he's going today, but he's got an extra garland. He's got his cow herding stick. He's got his bugle. And his flute today is got like silver chains hanging off of it in different ways. And maybe at the end is even like a lotus or a peacock feather. A peacock, I'm not sure by my viewing of my limited vision and my camera. But he's also got a wonderful turban. I don't know if anybody noticed, but Radharani's dress, are those bananas on her skirt? I was thinking, and then are they monkeys with bananas? I'm not really sure. But there's something esoteric going on there for sure, way over my understanding. But who doesn't love a Vrindavan monkey and a banana from the Wala? Yeah, and she's got some like flying saucer earrings, like these gold swinging earrings. So beautiful. And she also has her chutter on. Very sweet. First, I thought hers and Muralidhar's chutter were one. It was all connected, but they each have their own, but Muralidhar's is touching hers. So it's very sweet. Hare Krishna Prabhus.
Thank you, Krishna Kumari, for facilitating the darshan. Even without eyes, we can see the Lord through your wonderful narration. Thank you. Jamuna Jaya says, Krishna Kumari is showing us how to absorb the mind properly. Correct. Yes. Okay. Isaiah, Annabelle, Jeev Jago, please recite the Mother. There she is. Unmute.
Oh no, not again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. Is that a mridanga in the background? Cool. Very cool. Who's playing? Karen? She's good. Thank you very much. Isaiah, don't break the...
Bolo, we want more. We want more. Honor your.
That was so beautiful. Thank you all. Wow. Such nice
Yeah.
kirtan.
As soon as kirtan starts, all our anxieties and worries and troubles are going away immediately. Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful Saturday. Give it to Krishna. Come again tomorrow. Haribol, thank you for your association.